Live from the Balls Visual Radio Studios, this is the Blades on Balls show. And now, here's your host, the voice of South African rugby himself, Hugh Bladen. Hugh, it's over to you.
Monday morning, Blades on Balls, and we are packed with exciting people. Marcello Fiasconaro, and I see Jonathan Kaplan is just lining up to talk to us. I just got to take those tweets there. Hi Worms, only tuned in now. What's your predictions for today? It's raining Kate and Honda. Okay, a quick prediction, Kate and Honda. Therefore, I will go Marty's will win, and I will go Picker will win. What do you say, March?
My son played at Marty's for the Victorians and the Cravens for a few games, so I'm going to go for Marty's as well. Although my father was professor of opera at UCT,
absolutely.
So but I think Marty's will win. They've made a great comeback from after their first two games.
Okay,
and I like Picker as well.
So Jonathan is with us. Morning, Jono.
Blades?
Yeah, got you. Can you hear him? Can you hear Jono?
I can hear him. Morning, Jonathan.
Morning, March. How are you?
I'm fantastic, thanks. Are you down in Cape Town?
Look what we got in common. We're both fantastic.
Jono, now somebody's just tweeted us and says that the Rian, Kate and Honda daar in Kaapstad.
Hardly Kate and Honda, but it is raining and the forecast is raining. So I think it will perhaps affect the way the game is played tonight in the Varsity Cup.
Yeah.
But I must say that I disagree with March. I assist at UCT with the coaching, and we are very confident of a good performance tonight and a good win.
Good.
Good.
Well, as long as it's a good game. But sounds like it will be very tight if it's raining, yeah.
Possibly, yeah, the game will be played slightly differently, but I think in the first game we won pretty comprehensively, and we're confident of a very good showing again tonight.
Yeah. Please, if you see Dougal, sorry, Blades, if you see Dougal, send him my love.
I will. I always see Dougal.
Good, okay. Well,
great.
He's a great old mate. So
He visited my house the other day. Sid and Dougal and I had a lemonade on my stoop about 2.5 weeks ago. So give him my best as well. You know, he played for Wanderers when
Dougal?
I was, yes.
Sure,
He came up
I must
to
have been in
Joburg.
Italy. What year was that about?
Oh, in the
Mid-70s?
No, it must have been. It was after he played it in 74.
Yeah.
Probably 76, 77,
I was
around
in Italy,
about there.
yeah.
So, Jono, what have we got? What have we got from the weekend on the refereeing side?
Okay, look, last week I said there was a mixed bag for the referees, and I think this week was no different. You know, there's a little bit of controversy around some of the games, and hopefully we'll get a chance to chat about that. Let's start off with a positive. I thought Jaco Paper refed very well in difficult conditions in the Waratahs Rebels game. And I thought Mike Fraser, he's a Kiwi referee with not much Super Rugby experience, did particularly well in the Bulls Sharks game.
Yeah.
Where I don't think, it was quite a brutal, typical South African derby, and I thought he was very even-handed throughout the game. And at the end of the game, the better team won. So hats off to those two gents. A lot of people have asked me about the Brumby Stormers game, and in particular the penalty try. My feeling is that it is a clear-cut penalty try, and if you're not going to give those, then you may as well not give any. And I'd like to see more examples of referees actually delivering in that type of instance than the other way around, and giving a penalty or a reset scrum. The Stormers scrum was clearly under the pump and in reverse and collapsed it, and so for me that's a clear-cut penalty try.
Can I butt in for a moment, Jono? Somebody said that they thought the scrum half had placed the ball into the tunnel of the scrum. Now, I haven't seen a replay, and it was somebody at, when I went to Ellis Park on Saturday, and somebody said, but the scrum half, Nick Knight, placed the ball into the tunnel of the scrum.
So Blades, so the law
That is
there
illegal. What is the law says you've got to roll it in, haven't you?
Correct. So in that respect, that wasn't perfect. But, like I've told you on numerous occasions, there are many laws in the law book that are not applied. Obviously, I think the referees are trying to get on top of the ball being fed correctly into the scrum. So that falls under the ball being fed correctly. So that would be incorrect.
Yeah.
But I mean, the amount of times that there's foot up, as an example, it's wild at the moment. It's rife. And
Jonathan, do you mean the props are trying to, and the hook is actually trying to hook the ball, or just putting their foot up early?
No, they're putting their foot up early.
Yeah,
so they
there were a
realize
few
now that the
cases
referees
in our game.
Yeah, the referees are getting tougher on straight feed, which I think is good.
Yeah.
It's been a long time coming, and we need to keep our foot on the throat.
Yeah.
But the one area that is now suffering is because the team that's hooking the ball now has, in effect, 7 players scrumming against 8, because the hooker has to get into a position to hook the ball. So now there's a little bit more foot up than there was in the past.
Okay. Any other observations in terms? I know that I got in on the back of the Bulls Sharks game, and then the guys who were in studio, I got the impression were not being particularly complimentary towards the referees.
Yes, so I think that's I've complimented the guys I thought that did well. There's a couple that need a bit of work. So, I mean, as an example, I don't think this should be about referees. I think we should talk about the decisions which affect.
That's what I like.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I said to Marcello.
Yeah.
That, we're not here to castigate referees or judge referees, or we're here for the viewer to get a better understanding of watching rugby.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, if a referee makes a mistake or he's made a rank bad decision, so that'll be up to Lyndon Bray to drop him or make a statement in respect of those poor decisions. I think the purpose of what we're doing is to try and highlight to the public what is and what isn't, and to give them a better facility of, because we're not pulling any punches on the show, Blades. I mean, I'm not interested in protecting the referee, even though, some would suggest that I am still a referee, but the purpose of this really is about giving the public access to information.
Yeah, sure.
So let's just, if we can just start off, the Highlanders Canes game, I'm not sure that all the decisions were right, but I don't think the referee really affected anything. And I thought it was a pretty decent game of rugby, played in good spirit, and you saw the amount of running rugby that took place in the game. But I think if we start off with the Cheetahs Blues, because I see Naka had a bit of a spray at the referee for making some wrong decisions.
Well, there was one poor decision when I think the referee didn't understand what the TMO was saying.
Yes, so I just want to go back just one before that. I don't know if you remember, but Boom Prinsloo was given a yellow card for being offsides, very close to the Cheetahs line.
Yeah.
Now, my take on that is that if Boom Prinsloo was offsides, and I think he was, the reason being that the ball was played by Danila and then went forward, and then the retreating player, which was Boom Prinsloo, dived on the ball in front of the Blues players, and so he is in an offside position. For me, this is a penalty try. It's a classic case of a penalty try. This player is now in an offside position. There's 5 Blues players in and around the ball. They're 1 meter from the Cheetahs line, and an offside player dives on the ball. This is the Cheetahs were lucky, in my opinion, just to get away with a yellow card. This was a classic case of penalty try.
Okay, right. Very interesting, because, that actually didn't even occur to me.
No, I didn't watch the game, so I can't comment. Yeah.
I thought the yellow card was a fair decision, because quite obviously, as you say, he was offside. But I must say, it didn't even occur to me that it should have been a penalty try. So there, you see, you have it, the opinion of the most experienced referee in world rugby.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, so
Jono?
Blaze, now we get on to the more topical one, the more popular one to discuss, and that is the award of the try by referee Pastrana I'm not sure if it was George Mawala or Charles Pietau, but in the act of scoring, he levers on his arm to get into a better position to place the ball. This was clearly not momentum and should have been penalized, especially as they had time to review. So in other words, I'm less forgiving in these type of instances when there's a slow motion and there is a clear law error. If a referee is in motion, and obviously we all understand that the game is very dynamic, the referee only can stand in one position on the field and sometimes doesn't get a clear picture.
Which he clearly didn't in that instance.
Well, he didn't. But once he had the facility of looking at it on the big screen, it was quite clear that the player had levered off his arm, and therefore it was not momentum as he had suggested and should have been a penalty to the cheaters. And in that respect, this has happened already once in the season with the Bulls getting a bonus point try to Marcel.
Yeah.
I think it's
Marcel van der Merwe.
Marcel van der Merwe, who scored a try, almost doing exactly the same thing. Andrew Lees was the referee, and I'm a big fan of Andrew Lees. I think he's an excellent referee, probably the most improved referee, certainly in Australia, if not the whole of Stanzar rugby. But in this particular case, this is law error. And law error at this level should not be tolerated.
Okay.
So,
Jonathan, what happens if the guys have all seen it on the big screen and the referee still makes a mistake? Do you guys then speak to him and he gets docked a couple of games, or how does it work?
Look, I'm not involved at Stanzar.
Yeah.
I've tried to stay involved in at SA Rugby and Stanzar, and there is no sustainable position for me at either organisation. Yeah. So I'm on the outer at the moment. But what they would probably do is bring it to the attention of the referee, and if this is happening on a regular basis, the referee would get rested in inverted commas.
Right.
Okay, now, Jono, just to go back to that Blues situation, because I've got quite strong feelings myself on it. The problem was that the TMO started talking to the Argentine referee and saying the player propelled himself forward, and quite clearly the referee couldn't understand what he was saying.
Yeah, we were talking about
it earlier.
Yeah.
When the referee said, okay, I'm going to award a try, can the TMO not say, no, you've got it wrong?
Okay, so there's two things here. First of all, the referee is privy to the same information as the TMO because he is looking at it on a big screen as well.
Yeah.
So it's only if that facility is not working that he would be totally reliant on the eyes of the TMO. And what Lyndon has correctly told the referees is that they need to take charge of this decision making, not because they are in effect the most qualified official on match day. So the TMO is there to assist the process, is there to give information, but at the end of the day, the decision resides with the referee. If he decides, listen, sometimes Blades, the screen is a bit grainy and it's far away from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then in that case, I mean, I've done it myself. I've said, listen, I cannot see that screen clearly. I'm quite happy for you to make the decision. In which case, in the last case that I remember, Sean Feltzman made a very important decision for me in a Currie Cup game between the Sharks and Western Province played in Durban. But in this particular case, the referee has seen it and he has still said that it's momentum. And for me, that's not good enough because it's clearly not momentum.
Yeah.
And just to take the idea further, forget about this game, forget about this referee or this game. If people ask, why do we have the TMO then if the referee is going to make the decision? The TMO is there to help the referee facilitate the process of getting the decision right. And like I said, sometimes it's very grainy, the screen. Sometimes you're far away from the big screen, so it's difficult to get an accurate picture. And in that case, the referee would rely totally on the help of the TMO to get the decision right.
Yeah.
And that's really all we're after, is just getting the decision right.
Well, the other thing is they should get word through from Lyndon Bray to the TMOs that if there is a foreign referee, speak simple English.
Yeah.
I think,
propelled
through the guide completely.
Yes.
We have to handle, because we got a lot of viewer and listener interaction, Jono. Gary Late, who's one of our most regular and consistent tweeters, said, what's your comment on the story in News 24, apparently? 4 refs dropped from
the
Super
S15
Rugby
clashes.
clashes.
Okay, well, I haven't read that article, and it's probably speculation, but I would think that there is quite a big panel of referees that Lyndon gave opportunities to, and this is the part of the season where he would try and refine his panel to try and get the best referees or the most consistent referees reffing games more often. I mean, that stands to reason. Lyndon's a very good referee manager, and so I'm sure that there is some truth to the article. I'm not sure on the numbers, whether there's 2 guys dropped or 4 guys dropped, but certainly there will be a refining process. I'm almost sure of it.
Right, yeah. We'll handle that in a moment. Leon Petz has said, hi, Oom Blades, Oom Marcello, and Ref JK.
I'm so relieved he didn't call me Oom.
Yeah, say.
You're in Cape Town.
And this is Leon Petz, who's another regular tweeter. He said, I thought the Reds were allowed way too much leeway with hands in the ruck. Comments on that?
Yes, well, I was getting to that because I think, that's obviously another game where which attracted a lot of commentary, like you say, from your own commentary team, from the guests in studio, and certainly some print media as well. So I've had the opportunities to chat to Stuart Berry. He's one of the blokes that I pay particular interest in, and he uses me as a conduit towards furthering his refereeing career. And I've got his take on it as well. So I don't think there can be any complaints about the first, say, 50 minutes of the game. I think, they were well refereed, and the team that was in front deserved to be there. What happened later on is that the referee then warned the Reds for consistent infringing at the breakdown. That can clearly be seen, or I saw it clearly on TV.
Yeah.
And then not long after that, Hansen, the hooker, put his hands, made a tackle, didn't show a clear release, and was duly yellow carded.
Yeah.
Now, whichever team you support, whatever you think, first of all, the decision to warn, was that right or wrong? In my opinion, it was right. So if the referee feels that he's not getting compliance at the breakdown, it is his obligation, particularly at this level, Blades. It's the one aspect that I don't think is refereed very well. And so you're getting teams that are willfully infringing at the breakdown. And in this particular case, the referee felt that the Reds were willfully infringing, and he yellow carded someone who did not adhere to a warning a couple of minutes before.
Yeah.
So what else could he be seen to be doing? If he backed
I
off,
agree with you. And remember at the time, very often when a team is let's say rampant, and you're on the attack and the other guys are defending like crazy, they do tend to slow the ball down and infringe and
but you've got to try and do it
are
legally.
in
That's the thing.
contravention to the laws. So I think I think Stuart Berry actually did a pretty good job.
So let's just say, so that first instance, for me, is a clear-cut infringement. It comes directly after a warning, and so the referee is well within his rights to issue the card. I don't think there can be any complaints about that decision. There is no clear release by the Reds player. And then you take the game a little bit further on. Now they're playing obviously with one man down. The Lions are pressing. They get very close to the Reds line, and there is another passage of play where Jake Schatz gets a yellow card. Now, it is not clear on TV, whether the player is on his feet or not, but I have ascertained from Stuart that the player was on his knees when he attempted to win the ball. So I can't say, nobody can say from the evidence on TV that the referee is right or wrong. So we'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he was right. In this case, what more do you want him to do? Once again, he's shouting at the player to release the ball, and the player is flat out ignoring him. This is 2 meters from the try line in a potential try scoring situation. What do you people want from the referee in that situation?
Yeah, no, he's in a tough position, and I think his decision was right. for me, Jonathan, I seem to think, and I know if the guys keep breaking the law, they've got to be shown the yellow card. But it's such a drastic step, especially often I see a team has been warned, and then a guy who hasn't caused or infringed, he's the first one, he's the next infringer, and he's off. It's a very tight line, I think. It's hard to make the decisions, but
It is tough, Mosh, but what you've got to realize is that the players of all the teams, the coaches of all the teams, want referees to
be consistent, I would say.
But especially in this regard, especially in the regard of, upgrading of sanction, because it is pointless at this level just to continually give penalty after penalty.
Yeah.
That serves absolutely no purpose.
Yeah.
So the reduction in personnel is a tool that referees have for non-compliance.
Yeah.
And in this particular case, as sad as it is to see one team being penalized so often, and it is sad, it's not a good look.
It does change the competition a little bit. But they do know the laws, but I think consistency is a very big part of it.
Another tweet, Jonathan, for your comment. I don't know whether you saw this. This is Gary again. I thought Grant Hutton was ahead of the kicker in the build-up to Andre Pollard's penalty at the end. Your thoughts?
I don't have a thought.
Okay.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
Well, that's fair. Hey, I mean that Gary, Jonathan maybe didn't see the situation, or
No, I didn't.
remember
Look, I must say,
guys out there. Remember, don't let bias cloud your judgment.
Blades, can I just bring something up which actually will never be written about, but which is actually very interesting nevertheless, and that is in the build-up to Willem Albert's try. Kankowski is tackled 5 meters from the try line, and then cannot get his pass away as an offload. He then gets himself onto his knees so that he can actually pass the ball, and Willem Alberts goes and scores. Now, I can assure you that if that happened close to the try line and Kankowski did that and then placed the ball over the try line, that would have been a penalty against him. And so that is the frustration of the inconsistency of this game at the moment.
Okay.
It's similar what we call a double roll and latch. When players are tackled and it's not actually momentum, they're doing a roll by themselves to ensure that the ball is not stolen. This happens commonplace throughout rugby all over the world. It's a technique that's been perfected by the ball carrier to ensure continuity. Whether it's within law or not, I'm absolutely certain it's not within law.
Yeah.
Because you cannot crawl, and you can't roll towards the try line. And so if something is not momentum, then it should be penalized according to law.
Yeah, right. The hard-working Maz has come up. The South African Lawrence van der Merwe, Argentine Francisco Pastrana, and Australian James Leckie were all cut from the refereeing roster in a move. Referees boss Lyndon Bray says recognised who has performed to expectations and who has not. The Super Rugby referees panel has been reduced from 18 to 14 with the additional removal of South African Jason Jufta, who is injured. So that's the article. And that's Sanzar's decision, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I mean, once again, I think all the three gentlemen that were dropped off the panel are they're very decent men, and they've done their best. And unfortunately, Lyndon's had to take a view, and that's the tough reality of professional sport. I feel for all of them, but at the same time, the competition demands excellence. And if Lyndon has gone down this road in that pursuit, I take my hat off to him.
Okay. Leon Petzer, hi, Worm, and Ref JK. I can't explain. Can you explain the changing lanes call? Bit confused on how it is interpreted.
All right. So changing lanes is when a team has correctly formed a maul, and the opposition defend well and stop the maul, and then the attacking team, the ball carrying team, some of their players detach off the front end of the maul and go on a different lane. In other words, because the maul has been stopped effectively, they can't carry on going straight, and they now change lanes in order to make progress.
So they go off at an angle, basically.
Yes, and crucially, they're using players ahead of the ball carrier to pave the way.
Yeah.
And that is obstruction, and that's changing lanes is a manner of describing the obstruction that's taking place.
Okay. Any other points on referees? Or refereeing
obviously,
decisions?
I don't. Just to wrap up the Lions and Reds fixture, I'm not sure that Berry got everything right. But once again, I think in some respects the commentary that's been made on his performance is just populist. It's not actually having a look at what he actually did, but rather doing what is popular. And like I said, it's an uncomfortable look for me when one team is continually penalized and the other one is not, and then there's a reduction in personnel. But if you actually cut to the chase and look at what he's actually penalized for, I think by and large he's got it right. There are a couple of things, in particular one scrum where I felt the Reds didn't get what they deserved, and one breakdown where I felt that it was a bit muddled and not clear. And obviously the throw-in at line-out, which the Reds wanted him to review, but which he had set a standard of prior to that throughout the game. So it's quite understandable that he wanted to adhere to that standard. But once again, really just to wrap up, I don't subscribe to this populist rubbish that, the ref was biased, that he favored the Lions, or that or in some cases it was reported that he's a cheat. I mean, I think that's shameful reporting.
Yeah.
I agree. Jonathan, just a quick one from me. I still think one of the referees' nightmares is to judge who's going down in the props in the front row, because really a lot of them are slipping, and I just don't know how you work it out, because when they go in, it looks to me like they're both going in. Will we get any change in the law there to make it a bit clearer, or stop the guys packing so low, or it's because the resetting of the scrums it's time wasting and not a spectacle.
Yeah, so I think there's two different points that you've made there. The first one is that there was actually an effort made to reduce the ball in play, to increase the ball in play as a result of the scrum collapses.
Yeah.
And to the best of my knowledge, we increased it by between 16 and 18% up until 2 years ago. So there was a very good effort made by referees to make decisions in respect to this. But like you now correctly said, I think some of the decisions are not actually accurate. So the gains you're making in terms of ball in play are actually offset by the accuracy of decision making. Yeah. And you can just see on the faces of some of the front row players that they're
bemused.
Yeah. So and then if you look at the 3-tier sequence that the RB have trialed now in respect of crouch, bind, set.
Yeah.
There are a lot of instances, particularly that I've seen in our own varsity cup and also at the higher level, where a lot of the scrums are actually going up now.
Yes.
They're not necessarily going down, but you find a lot of players in the air.
Yeah.
And then referees have to make a decision to either play on.
Who popped?
Sorry, carry on.
No, sorry, I was going to say who popped up, how to make that decision, who's guilty. Sorry.
Yes. So in that respect, I've got a great deal of sympathy for the rest, because obviously they don't want the scrum to be a focal point of the penalty count. And I've got a great deal of sympathy for that. I'm not a fan of, throwing the law book at any given situation and saying, apply the law, because like I've alluded to on almost every time we're on the program, is the fact that there are many laws in the law book that are not applied. Yeah. There are some that are applied partially. And so I think it's really about expectation and consistency. Those are the two areas where, if the referees can get it right, we still have a game of rugby. I've made a suggestion in my upcoming book that we should tried to start the clock when the hooker throws the ball in at the line-out and when the scrum half throws the ball in at scrum, rather than all that downtime, dead time that takes place when the ball's out of play.
Yeah, drying the ball with the towel and all that, yeah.
Yeah, so and that I feel will get more bums on seats. It'll create a better spectacle. The public won't feel robbed that they're not getting a spectacle, a great game of rugby. Yeah. And I think you may get better results. You may get better results. I'm not sure, but it's certainly worth a try. There is so much time, I wouldn't say wasted, but time when the ball is not in play, where the clock is just ticking.
It's frustrating. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, Jono, we've got Henry. Thanks, Henry, for your interest and your tweeting us. JK, is there a referee ranking system? I think we touched on this last week, but Henry has asked that question.
Yes, there is. So at Sanzar level, there will be. When I was there was it operated in batches. So let's say there were 18 referees. There were a top 6, sometimes a top 4. They didn't attach an actual number to it, but we all knew who the top guys were. They were getting most of the games and they were getting most of the key games. Then there was a middle batch, which were sort of the journeyman guys that were very good at what they did, but not masters in their art. So they would get, obviously there's not many of the top tier. So the journeyman would get a lot of the the middle tier games. And then there was the last tier, which were either referees at risk, which is now what Blades has read out that 3 of our guys have been dropped, or blokes that were just trying to learn their trade. So an example of which is Nick Bryant, who's only refereed really a handful of Super Rugby games. He's a young 22-year-old just starting his journey. So he'd probably be in that bottom batch. So there is a ranking system. And then what happens is Lyndon would rely on the reports and the feedback from the selectors and assessors in order to make decisions on who should be involved in playoff rugby or which referees were on form and should be used more while they're on form. All of that goes into the pot. But it is far, no matter what anybody says, and this happens at, even at South African rugby level or the RB level, no matter what anybody says, this is not a scientific process at all. It is totally reliant on the subjectivity of management to decide who is most suitable for these games.
Okay, there you have it. Another tweet and question from Leon. I know refs are professionals, but wouldn't it be better to have the neutral refs to avoid any suspicion wrongly being placed on them? That is a point, we used to have neutral referees and it's changed.
Yes, so Blades, just to give you the history of that, this is a very fair point. This debate is an important debate, but I just want to remind the listeners that this process was not initiated by referees themselves. It was initiated by the coaches. And it happened in a semi-final between the Bulls and the Crusaders where Robbie Deans actually went public and said he'd rather have a referee like Jonathan Kaplan doing the semi-final, even though he's from South Africa, than Matt Goddard, who wasn't a bad referee at all, but he certainly wasn't one of the senior referees, and he definitely wasn't one of the best referees. But just because of neutrality, so he was down to do that game. That came from a Kiwi coach, and obviously a very respected one at that. And so that precipitated a debate, and eventually all the coaches were sitting in a room and they decided for themselves that they wanted the best referees for the best games, no matter what the nationality. Now, obviously, this then followed its natural course, and that's what's happening at the moment. But obviously, when these type of incidents occur like the Cheetahs Blues game, where perhaps Naka felt that some critical decisions went against the Cheetahs, and the Reds Lions game, where many of the Reds supporters felt aggrieved that they were reduced in number and that the referee seemed to be favouring the home team. Those type of games then reopened this debate again, in my opinion.
What would your ideal be?
Look, I think logistically, it is very difficult for the best referees to be on the road consistently. I mean, just think about it. It's not geographically, it's a very difficult tournament. I spent for the better part of 2 decades, I spent between 4 and 6 months on the road every single year for 2 decades. And that is exceptionally difficult. It's incredibly
much like
draining.
airline food.
Yeah, well, it wasn't so much the airline; it was more the hotels. And obviously the city that you end up in, the hotel that you end up in, the resource pool at your disposal. But the reality is that we travel Lone Ranger, or in some cases maybe with one other, and it gets exceptionally difficult and lonely on the road when you're not around your loved ones and your friends and family. And so that can certainly impact on performance. I mean, there's no question about it. If you're happy and content, you're obviously going to deliver better performance. If you're starting to feel emotionally drained, that can impact on your outputs on any given day, no matter how skillful you are. And I'm sure that it affected some of my performance as well. So logistically, it's very difficult to have just a merit-based tournament because the referees are going to be on the road non-stop. So that's why this other system works quite well for the organization. They just got to be careful, obviously, that not too many of these type of incidents come up where visiting teams feel that they're not getting a fair crack.
Okay, very interesting point about the loneliness of the long-distance referee.
Yeah.
Jono, thanks for being with us, as always, on a Monday morning. It's become a regular feature. Obviously, from the tweets we've been receiving, there is great interest in what you have to say about referees and about the game of rugby itself. So, once again, thank you for being with us on this Monday morning, and good luck tonight.
My pleasure. Hey, thanks for that, Blades. And nice to chat to you, March.
Cheers, John.
Look forward to the rugby coming up next weekend, but there's a big matter tonight, and hopefully UCT will be able to beat our nemesis, the Marties, again to progress to the finals. We're really looking forward to it.
Me too, and don't forget to say hi to Dougal, please.
I will for both of you guys.
Thanks.
Ciao, ciao.
Thanks, Jono. Bye.
Love your new offices. It's fantastic.
Yeah, they're great, and thank you for gracing us with your presence.
What a sacrifice!
We're going to go through Marcello's amazing career.